Hi everyone. Just wanted to get to you your summary for week 3 information. So just wanted to talk briefly about our information from the discussion board, the Maslow's hierarchy, and how that can play into marketing. So good work in the discussions. There's a lot of you, so that's a lot of discussion boards. It's a really big class. But great work in the discussions, and it's really interesting. You think about it, a lot of times. Pittsburgh's healthcare marketing heavy town, so not so much here. A lot of the folks here advertise for everything, but in a lot of places, a lot of the marketing that you see is really not as focused on those things that fall low on the pyramid. So a lot of times when you see healthcare marketing, it tends to be very focused on things that'll fall higher up on the pyramid, like things that are more of a want and not a need. You don't see a lot of don't see as many ads for cancer services or those types of things because there's not as much brutal competition as there is in this area. The competitive marketplace is so, for those of you that are in this area, I think we do have a few that are outside of the greater Pittsburgh metro area. But for those of you that are here in Western PA, they advertise for everything here. But for those of you that are outside, you'll notice that a lot of times when we see marketing, a lot of it is for those things that do fall higher on our hierarchy of needs, and that's because they are playing to those wants and not necessarily the needs. We need to seek an emergency department, but even with that, a lot of times I'm trying to think of where it was. It may have even been like Las Vegas. The first time I saw a sign that said, whatever emergency department it was, 15-minute wait, and there was a number on the sign that changed based on the wait that was available there. So it's interesting how a lot of places are playing to those things that we talked about last week in the week 2, the things that we think that are important: time and quality of care. You'll often see that on a billboard. That they are the number one hospital in something or other, and a lot of times it's an award that they may have bought themselves into through a benchmarking agency or something like that. But it'll be great that they'll get to put it up on a billboard because they know that quality is important, an important marketing aspect of, many things. Good work there. Interesting. It's always interesting to talk about those elements of the marketing aspects when it comes to advertising and how we might approach advertising for those types of things. What things that an agency may look at when trying to develop advertising for a healthcare organization. So what I do want to talk about are our quiz results. There's actually one question that I'm going to give everyone credit for. It did seem to be pretty difficult. So when a lot of people get it wrong, I'm thinking that there's something that's a little confusing, but I do want to talk about it. So the question was, the consumer responses exhibited in stages of change is a learning psychological process. And I think what's confusing about that, it is the notion of stages of change, which is talked about in our textbook. It is a psychological process. When you think about stages of change, I think the example they gave in the text was like folks that are going through, I know this is something I'm struggling with myself right now and trying to lose a few pounds, but you kind of struggle with, okay, I know that driving back and forth to Pittsburgh has caused me to eat too much fast food. So I accept that, and so I moved past this stage and moved down to the stage where now I know I need to make a change. So how do I make that change? It's just these stages of change. It talks in this answer about it being, excuse me, a learning psychological process, and it's really not so much about the consumer responses being a learning process. It's more about, from a marketing standpoint, it's more about marketing and folks in those positions tailoring their therapy and their services to meet the needs of the consumer and their responses being in that way. So that's why the answer was actually false. Um, but really confusing question, very nuanced. So I'm going to give everyone credit for that. But remember that stages of change is just that. You're going to have patients and folks seeking services that may be coming at different stages, and you might want to think about, okay, what stage might these patients be in, or these potential patients be in, and how can we look to meet their needs in the best way. So that's how stages of change works out there. But it is most definitely a psychological process. It's just that learning word that was a little wanky in there. Second one, business success depends primarily on how well each department performs its work. And this is a true-false question as well, obviously. Our answer here is false. And this is mainly having to do with, one would think that if departments did great work that the business would be successful, but that's not necessarily the case. Generally, if departments are doing great work, that is one great step in the right direction. But you need to certainly be improving your processes, and you need to be making sure that your competencies are aligned, resources are aligned, capabilities are aligned. Everything needs to be perfect in order for a business to be successful. So you can't just say, okay, everybody in this department is doing great work. Like, for example, a university isn't going to be successful if all of their faculty teach well. You need students to show up too. You need to have you need to have students that are admitted. So, so admissions needs to be out there hustling, getting students to come in, etc. So even though you might have great faculty, if there's no students, it doesn't make any difference. So same with healthcare. If we might be doing a great job in the nursing unit, but if they're not doing a good job downstairs in finance and they're not bringing in the funds for the services that are being provided, then it's not going to work. Or if perhaps maybe everyone in the whole place is doing a great job, but they're not. Maybe this particular hospital isn't playing well in the sandbox, and they're not getting along with the local hospitals, or maybe they're not getting along with the regulators or something like that. So it's really a matter of everything aligning. And all resources, capabilities, competencies being met, then you will be successful. Doesn't mean you can't be partially successful otherwise, but you need everything to align in order to be a successful business. Next one, in a marketing plan, marketing strategy, and there's several answers. I won't read them all because there's a lot of words there. But the correct answer is defines the target segments. I just want to flip here in the textbook. The definition, it says here, the strategic marketing plan defines the target markets and value proposition that will be offered. So think about, the strategic marketing plan or that market strategy. The real purpose of that is to figure out, okay, who are we going after? Who is that target market? And then, what is that value proposition? What are we going to offer them? Now there's a whole bunch of things, kind of tactical things behind this, the actual market plan, the tactics that will go into place. But really, to start, what is that target market? What are your target segments? And there's a whole process behind that, which obviously, you could do 5 forces analysis, you could do SWOT, figure out where your weaknesses are, who are your threats, etc., and make these determinations. But you want to define that target segment or those target segments and figure out what your value proposition is. What exactly do you have to offer to them? And that's really your key. Okay, next one. Strategic planning starts with an environmental analysis, true or false. And this is false. The answer is false. So strategic planning starts actually with a definition of your business, of your overall business. You want to look at like kind of a history of the aims, preferences, resources, competencies, customer needs, just kind of an overall definition of what you've got, what do you have to offer. And that's really where you start from strategy. You want to figure out where you start so you know where you have to go. And then you'll do, kind of that environmental analysis will definitely come into play, but it's not going to be your first bit. So the answer to that was false. The last one is another true-false. Five forces analysis offers a strategic implementation to the SWOT analysis. So this answer was true. And if you read, there's a whole section in the textbook about the five forces analysis. I'd advise for sure taking a look at it. And the five forces analysis is really, I usually call it like the SWOT analysis on steroids. It's really like a much more detailed version, I guess, if you want to say that, of the SWOT analysis. Gives a lot more detail that can really help to generate some strategic choices, as opposed to just the strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats, obviously. So by using that five forces analysis, you can get not just data, not just information like you can out of the SWOT, but you can actually make that next step and actually start to have choices to make for your strategic planning process. So it really can offer that strategic implementation piece that the SWOT just gives you data, and you really have to work with the data to come to that next step. The five forces analysis really can help to make that next step a little more apparent for you. So it can be really helpful. So that is what we have for this week. If I'm remembering correctly, and I'm going to click here on my other computer, seems like this is it's not too terrible. I'm going to say it seems like this was a busy week, but I think that was last week that had had a lot of readings. This week isn't too bad, but in any case, make sure you manage your time wisely. Any questions, please, as always, let me know. And I look forward to seeing everyone in the discussion boards. Thanks so much.